She tried to save the abandoned cub and made the worst mistake of her life. The sound of a car door opening in the middle of the African savanna is not just a mechanical noise. In the heavy, suffocating silence of the bush, it sounds like a gunshot. It is the sound of a contract being broken. A contract that says humans stay inside the metal shell and the wild stays outside. When that click echoed through the dry air, three things happened instantly. The tour guide froze, his hand hovering over the ignition. The tall golden grass 20 meters away stopped swaying in the wind. And a woman named Elena stepped down from the safety of the Land Cruiser, her eyes fixed on a small, whimpering ball of fur in the dirt, completely unaware that she had just removed herself from the top of the food chain. Elena was not a reckless person by nature. She was a nurse. She spent her life fixing broken things, tending to the vulnerable, saving lives. When she booked this safari in Tanzania, she imagined majestic sunsets and distant herds of elephants. She viewed the wilderness through the lens of a documentary, edited, narrated, and ultimately safe. She didn't understand that the savannah doesn't have a script, and it certainly doesn't have mercy. It was the third day of the trip. The heat was relentless, a physical weight pressing down on the roof of the vehicle. The dust coated everything in a fine orange layer. Elena, her husband Mark, and their guide, a man named David who had spent 30 years in these parks, were driving through a dense sector known for high predator activity. David was cautious. He kept the engine running low, scanning the horizon with eyes that saw things the tourists couldn't. Then they saw it. Right by the side of the dirt track, no more than 15 feet away, lay a lion cub. It was tiny, its spots still vivid, its fur matted with dust. It was letting out a high-pitched, distressful mewling sound. To human ears, it sounded like a crying baby. It triggered a biological imperative in Elena that bypassed logic entirely. She leaned forward, gripping the back of David's seat. She asked where the mother was. David scanned the area. The grass was tall, yellow, and impenetrable. He told them the mother was likely hunting or moving the rest of the litter. He explained that lionesses often leave cubs hidden for hours. But to Elena, the cub didn't look hidden. It looked abandoned. It looked like it was dying of thirst. The cub tried to stand and stumbled. That was the breaking point. Elena's empathy, usually her greatest strength, became her fatal flaw. She began to argue. She insisted they couldn't just leave it there. She demanded they give it water or pick it up and take it to the rangers. David was firm. He explained the rules of the bush. You do not interfere. You do not touch. Nature takes its course. If the cub is sick, it feeds the scavengers. If the mother is gone, it dies. That is the cycle. He told them to sit back. He reached for his radio to report the sighting, turning his head away from the passengers for a split second. That split second was all it took. Elena didn't see a predator's trap. She saw a patient in need. She whispered to Mark that she was just going to grab it quickly. Mark, paralyzed by the heat or perhaps just not processing the reality of the situation fast enough, didn't grab her arm. The lock clicked. The door swung open. The heat hit Elena like a blast furnace. The smell of the earth was intense. Dry grass, manure, and something metallic. She took one step, then two. She was on the ground now. The vehicle, a massive fortress of steel and glass just seconds ago, suddenly looked very far away. She was small, painfully unprotected. She moved toward the cub. "It's okay," she whispered. "I've got you." The cub stopped crying. It looked at her. Its eyes weren't filled with gratitude. They were wide with instinctual fear. It hissed, a tiny, raspy sound. Elena reached out her hands. She was 5 feet away from the vehicle, just 5 feet. The silence of the savannah broke, not with a roar, but with a rush of air. A roar is for territory. A roar is a warning. Hunters do not roar. They strike in silence. From the tall grass directly behind the cub, the earth seemed to explode. It wasn't a slow reveal. It was a blur of tawny muscle moving faster than human reaction time allows. The lioness had been there the entire time. She hadn't been hunting. She hadn't been miles away. She was flattening herself against the earth, watching. waiting for the threat to get close enough. Elena didn't even have time to scream. The lioness hit her with the force of a small car. The impact lifted Elena off her feet. There was a sickening thud as they hit the ground together, a cloud of red dust erupting around them. The chaos that followed was absolute. Inside the vehicle, Mark was screaming, a sound of pure primal horror. David, the guide, was shouting, fumbling for the rifle clamped to the dashboard, but he couldn't fire. The lioness and Elena were a tangled knot of limbs and fur. A shot risked hitting the woman. The lioness wasn't biting to kill immediately. She was neutralizing a threat. She clamped her jaws onto Elena's shoulder and shook. The power of a full-grown lioness is difficult to comprehend until you see it. It can snap the spine of a wildebeest. Elena was a ragdoll. The shaking was violent, tearing muscle and shattering bone in seconds. Elena's screams were guttural, wet, and terrified. She was thrashing, trying to push the 300-pound animal off her. But it was like trying to push a mountain. The lioness growled, a deep vibration that rattled the chassis of the Jeep. David slammed his hand on the horn. He revved the engine, the diesel motor roaring, trying to scare the beast. He banged the side of the door with the rifle butt. The lioness released Elena's shoulder, her muzzle stained crimson. She looked up at the vehicle, her eyes cold, devoid of malice, simply processing the situation. She stood over Elena, panting. Elena was curled in a fetal position, the dust turning to mud beneath her. For a terrifying moment, time stood still. The cub, the cause of this entire tragedy, scrambled into the grass, vanishing. The mother stood her ground. She was deciding whether to finish the job or retreat. David revved the engine again, lurching the vehicle forward aggressively. The sudden movement broke the standoff. The lioness snarled, flashing 3-inch canines, and then turned. With a fluidity that mocked the violence she had just inflicted, she slipped into the grass and disappeared. David didn't wait. He didn't check if it was safe. He leaped out, grabbed Elena by her uninjured arm and the back of her shirt, and dragged her toward the open door. Mark pulled from the inside. They hoisted her onto the floor of the Land Cruiser. The interior of the car, once a place of air-conditioned comfort, was now a trauma unit. The smell of blood was overpowering. Elena was conscious, but she was going into shock. Her skin was gray, her shoulder was a ruin. The bite had missed her neck by inches, but the damage was catastrophic. The drive back to the airstrip was a nightmare of its own. Every bump in the road elicited a moan of agony from the back seat. David drove with one hand on the wheel and the other holding the radio, calling for a medical evacuation. He was furious. He was shaking. But he drove fast. Elena survived. But she didn't walk away. The infection from a lion's mouth is almost as dangerous as the bite itself. The bacteria that live in the gums of a predator are designed to rot flesh. Elena spent 3 months in a hospital in Johannesburg, undergoing multiple surgeries to reconstruct her shoulder and arm. She lost 40% of the mobility in her upper body. The scars that wrap around her torso are thick, ropey, and permanent. But the physical scars were not the only aftermath. The video of the incident, captured by a dash cam on the dashboard, was reviewed by park authorities. It showed the brutal efficiency of nature. It showed the cub, which Elena had risked her life for, reuniting with the mother moments later. The cub was never abandoned. The mother had placed it there as a test, or perhaps just to rest, while she kept watch from the camouflage of the grass. Elena had projected human emotion onto a wild animal. She saw a crying baby that needed a mother. She failed to realize that the mother was right there, and she was the intruder. This story is a brutal reminder of a line we have forgotten. We watch nature on high-definition screens. We see lions as characters in a movie. We forget that the savannah is a place of absolute laws. The first law is respect. The second is distance. When Elena stepped out of that car, she entered a world where her good intentions meant nothing. The lioness didn't hate her. The lioness didn't want to eat her. The lioness simply acted on millions of years of instinct: protect the offspring, eliminate the threat. Elena returned home a different person. She no longer speaks of the majesty of the wild with the same naive wonder. When she looks at her scars in the mirror, she remembers the heat, the dust, and the golden eyes that looked at her not as a savior, but as a trespasser. She tried to be a hero in a world that doesn't need heroes. It only needs survivors. And on that day, in the tall yellow grass, she learned that the price of forgetting your place in nature is paid in blood.